Hi everyone, this is Debbie from Organic Oasis in Northern California. Today's an exciting day. I'll be canning vine fresh tomato soup. The recipe I'm using is from the Ball Blue Book, Guide to Preserving. And I'll be using my Presto canner, electric canner, which I got last year, and I have a video on unboxing it. I really love it, and I'm going to be using that to pressure cook this wonderful tomato soup. So let's get started. Here is a digital pressure cooker, the Presto Precise. And the first thing we need to do is put 3 quarts of water into the insert. So here is the Presto liner, and inside of it I have the tray that goes in the bottom that protects the coating from getting scratched off. And I don't know if you can see, but there is a fill line right here in this that is the 3-quart line. So I just always take this right over to my sink and just fill it up to the line. And then I have to carry it filled with water to the canner, but I don't have a problem with that. If you have a problem carrying water, if it's too heavy or you find it awkward, then just take 3-quart jars, a quart jar like this, fill it up 3 times and pour it in, and that should be just perfect. We have 13 pounds of tomatoes here, and Tomato Tim has cut them up into various size pieces. Quarters is good, I think, because we want smaller pieces that will fit better in this pot. So the next thing we are going to do is to cut up an onion and 2 cloves of garlic. So the Vine Fresh tomato soup calls for a medium yellow onion and 2 cloves of garlic. And what we're going to do is we are going to saute them until they soften. And then we're going to add them to the tomatoes, and we're going to cook them all together with other spices. And once they have been cooking for a while to soften them, I'm going to then puree them. Just going to add a little tiny bit of olive oil here. And I'm going to add my onion. And like I said, it's not all minced, it's not diced. I just cut it up so that it fits in the pan nicely. I will be sauteing it until it softens, but later in this recipe, it will be put through a food milling machine that will blend everything up and remove skins and pieces, seeds, and all that stuff. So now I'm just gonna take the skin off of this garlic that I harvested from my garden. I had a great batch of, I grew a great batch of garlic this year. And I have them stored, they're cured, and I just love this because I can use them whenever I want. I always have them there. I don't have to worry I'm gonna run out and have to run to the grocery store. These are really pretty ones too. The Italian garlic with the purple on the outside. Okay, this one I have to cut a little piece off. So this recipe calls for 2 garlic cloves, but I'm just gonna cut them into small pieces. Not worrying too much about how small they are since they're going through the food mill. Okay. And I'm putting them right into the frying pan along with the onion. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and saute the onion and garlic just until the onion becomes translucent. It's going to take 5 to 10 minutes. The onion and garlic are finished, and I'm just going to set them aside and move on to the next step, which is cutting up our pepper. Now the recipe calls for 1 medium red bell pepper. These are what I had in my garden, and they're smaller. I picked them off. This one could have grown bigger, but I wanted to use them today for this soup recipe. So I just pulled them off the vines, off the plants outside. Not vines, plants. Pepper plants don't have vines. Okay, so all we're gonna do now is remove the seeds. And basically, again, I'm not gonna dice them or mince them. I'm just gonna cut them into pieces, small pieces. Just go quick because, like I said, the food mill removes everything, and it also kind of purees it. So I don't want to do the work twice. I'll let the machine do all the work because I'm making tomato soup, and tomato soup, when you can it, you are not supposed to can with the tomato skin because there's bacteria on the tomato skin. And so most recipes, they want you to remove it. That's the safe canning guidelines. So I follow the guidelines. So I do remove the skin, but some people will blanch the tomatoes and peel the skin that way. Some people will put them in the oven and cook them and, you know, let them steam or cook kind of in the oven and then peel the skin off that way, or roast, I guess, roast in the oven and then peel it off that way. And there's various methods to get the skin off of the tomatoes. I just find the easiest way is to just run it through my food mill. That way I can cook it. I just run it through the food mill and then continue on with the recipe. So that's what I'm gonna do. And my food mill it's not a KitchenAid brand, but it works with the KitchenAid. And you can buy hand cranked food mills for less expensive. KitchenAid makes their own, but it's quite expensive. I went with this, I think it's called Kitch-Tree food mill, and mine I've had for years, but you know, it does kind of leak when you're using it. I don't like that, but it gets the job done. I'm just a little more messy. One day I will probably splurge and buy a better food mill, but right now I just keep using it. Like I said, it gets the job done. That's the important thing. If I miss any seeds in these peppers, the food mill will catch them. We have our tomatoes here, our beautiful 13 pounds of tomatoes. I have this on medium heat, and as you can hear, you may hear it's starting to simmer. So they are starting to get hot. And so what I'm gonna do now is add in the onions and garlic that I sauteed earlier. I'm going to next add in a tablespoon of sugar. I'm going to add in the chopped up or cut up bell pepper. And I'm going to put in a 1/4 cup of tomato paste. This is not my home canned tomato paste. I'm using this Kirkland Organic. And now basically what we're gonna do, we have everything in. The only thing we didn't put in is salt and pepper, and that will be added later on after it goes through the food mill and it's back on the oven boiling again. Then you can salt and pepper it. For now, our goal is just to get this to a boil, put the lid on, cook it for about 30 minutes, and let it cook down, and everything will get nice and soft. and then we will run it through the food mill. So I'm gonna let this go. I will put the lid on. I'll let it cook about 30 minutes, and then I will get right back to you. The soup has been cooking for half the time, so it's been cooking for 15 minutes, and it has 15 minutes more to go. Now that I have the 3 quarts of water inside the pressure canner liner, I plugged in this unit, and you can see now it's flashing pressure can. So I'm going to go ahead now, and as you see, if I turn this, it gives you a choice: boiling water can or pressure can. I want pressure can. I press this button, now it's saying 10 minutes. I need to pressure can my tomato soup for 20 minutes. And now it's telling me to insert the jars. So I'm going to use quart jars. I think my soup will take about 4 quarts. So I'm going to be putting in, even though it says 4 quarts, I'm going to be putting in 5 quarts filled halfway with water. And that's because I'm not sure how many quarts it's going to take for my soup. So just in case, this Presto canner allows you to can 5 quarts as long as they have the small mouth. And what that means is your jars can have a small mouth like this, where they go in and then they come out like a funnel. Or you could get the quart jar that has the wide mouth like this, where it's just pretty much straight up and down. So if you're canning with this canner, it'll take 5 of the small mouth, and it'll take 4 if you use the wide mouth. So I'm going to go ahead and use the small mouth so that I could, if I get 5 jars of soup, tomato soup, then it'll have room for all those jars. So here is the inside of the canner with the 5 jars in it. Now, in this particular canner, you cannot water bath can quarts, because you know that when you water bath can, you have to have the water 1 inch above the top of the jar. And you can see these quart jars go right up to the top. So there's no way to put water above these. So you cannot water bath can quarts. But when you pressure can, we're only going to keep the small amount, the 3 quarts of water. So it doesn't matter. We don't have to add water up above the jars. So this is ready to go. So I'm going to take you back down and show you what we do next. So it says insert jars, which I just did. And now it says warm. It's going to warm up the water and warm the jars. And the jars, once the jars are warm, they're actually ready to add the soup or whatever you're canning. So it's time to put the lid on. So I'll show you how we do that. So when you're adding this lid, you do not want the weight. Right now, we do not want the weight on the lid. So here's the lid. Here's the weight. But because we're not pressure canning yet, we don't want to put the lid on. This is going to be heating up just to warm the jars. We don't want the pressure to stay in or pressure to build up right now. So we're just going to take that off. So any boiling or water, when the water is heating up, steam can come out. So, and when you put this on, it keeps the steam in so the pressure builds, and that's how you get enough heat inside to actually kill the bacteria and the germs. So what I'm going to do now is I just put this lid on like this, and it shows how to do it. You put it in and then you twist it. But I'm just going to leave this just like this. I'm going to lock it up, lock it. But the vent is opened so the water and the steam can come out of here. So this is exactly how you want it. And I'm going to take you back down here. And here, see how it shows that your pressure canning, it's warming, and the little things going are telling you how you can actually watch this and see as it gets closer to actually being ready. It takes about 20 minutes to actually heat up until the jars are ready. and they're warm and they've been sterilized and ready for canning. So I will come back when that's done. This will beep and let us know. So I will come back then. The food mill that I use is this Kitsch Tree. It's a stand. It attaches to my KitchenAid, and I will show you how I set it up. So this Kitsch Tree. So let me show you how I set up my Kitsch Tree food mill. So this piece is here. I go ahead and I put in, I think this is the auger. Then I put in this long white piece. And then the strainer goes on top. And there's these little holes it fits into like that. And then this holds it all in place, but I have to push really hard to get a tight seal. So I have to really screw this on tight, and it does tend to leak. So I need to screw it on as tight as I can. And it comes with this gadget to get a really tight, so you can really screw it on and get a tight connection here. And it does always leak for whatever reason through the connector through here. I've never been able to get it on tight enough so it doesn't leak. And that's the only problem with this, is it tends to leak. I'm going to try to tighten it a little bit more, and I'll tighten it more once I put it on the machine. So that's how that works. So now I attach the food mill to my KitchenAid. I take this off. This goes in. This actually has to go, let me see. Oops, it goes, I had it, the whole thing upside down. It goes like this. This fits in here like that. There's a little thing here. I don't know if you can see this, but this actually fits in this little space. And once you get that in, then you can tighten it on. So it goes on like that, and then this nut goes in here and fastens the whole thing together, so it's not supposed to come out while you're using it. Like that. Okay. And then I'm going to push this up like that. And then you can see you put the tomatoes in here and they will come out through the strainer. Like that. And so the only other thing is there's this piece that needs to go on here. So now this part goes on. But this part has always been a little tricky because it has grooves in it, and you have to get the grooves perfectly in here. And like I said, I've had problems with this leaking in the past, and it could just be that I never got it in properly. So this is the way it should go. It's snapped in here. And then this goes right here like this. And that snaps on like this. Okay, so this should be ready to strain the tomato soup. So I'm ready to start running my tomato soup through the Kitsch Tree food mill that's attached to my KitchenAid. And what I did was I took the soup that was in here and I just moved it into 2 smaller pots, because as the soup, the strained soup comes out, I'm going to want to pour it back in here. We still need to cook the soup for, I think, about 15 minutes, bring it back to a boil, add salt and pepper before we can it. So that's the easiest way I found to do it. So this, the KitchenAid goes on to number 4. The strained soup is coming out of this part here, and the seeds and skin are coming out this part. If the soup gets clogged and some tomatoes clog it, this little tool, the same tool that you use to tighten the nut on, you can also use it as a plunger and do this. So here is the pot that I'll be pouring the soup back into, and I just want you to see how this looks. So now that it's been strained, just watch as I pour this. See how smooth it is? All the skin and the seeds are out. Even though I didn't completely see the peppers or that I didn't cut the onions into little pieces, it's all blended beautifully into this delicious soup. Now, here is the seeds and all the pieces that it separated out. It actually took out all the tomato skins, all the seeds. It even actually took out pieces of onion. So the flavor of the onion will be in here because it cooked for a long time, but the actual onion pieces are out. That makes the soup so smooth. So this Kids Tree does a good job. So as you can see over here, I have another whole bowl that I need to put through the food mill. So I'll be back when I finish that. The soup is back on the heat. I'm going to bring it to a simmer and simmer it for 15 minutes. The last thing I'm going to add is some salt. And the recipe calls for a tablespoon of salt and a teaspoon of black pepper. You can really do this for taste, for your taste. It doesn't really affect the canning if you leave the salt out. In fact, everything in this recipe, they say, if you use less, it's okay. You just can't use more. So an example would be, you don't like red bell peppers. It calls for 1 medium red bell pepper. You could leave that out. But if you love bell peppers, don't throw in 3 bell peppers. Now you notice I used 3, but that's because they were tiny. I figured my 3 tiny peppers equaled 1 medium pepper. And color doesn't matter. So it calls for red bell pepper. Mine were black and green. So again, if you want to leave out the sugar, you can. If you want to leave out the salt, you can. But don't add more than the recipe says. I want to salt mine. I put in a tablespoon of salt and I'm putting in 1 teaspoon of black pepper. So now I'm going to go ahead and just bring this to a simmer. And once it simmers, I'm just going to let it go, the 15 minutes. And then it's time to can. So we're almost finished. Doesn't this look great? I mean, this soup is so beautiful. And I love it after it's strained. It just looks so smooth. So anyway, I'll bring it to a simmer and I'll come back in 15 minutes. The tomato soup has been simmering for 15 minutes and it is time to can it. So as you can see, this nice pressure canner has been keeping the jars nice and warm, and it says fill jars, so it's time to fill them. So I'm going to now open up the lid. Let me move this up so you can see. So I'm just going to open the lid. And it's nice and hot. And now it's time to take out the jars, one at a time. So I'm just going to take out 1 jar. As you can see, it's filled with water. Dump the water out, and we're going to fill it up with the tomato soup. I have all my tools here. This jar, I just poured out the water. It was really hot. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill up my jar with the tomato soup. Tomato Tim and I tasted the soup after I added the salt and pepper, and it's really good. It reminds me of Campbell's tomato soup from when I was a kid. And it's very delicious. It's different than, it's not a gourmet tomato soup. It's kind of basic, but it's really good. And just knowing that, you know, it's all organic tomatoes, everything organic in here. We grew the tomatoes ourselves. Okay, so I need to remember to add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice is what I'm adding to this. Now, I hate having to do this. I feel like I'm tainting my organic tomatoes juice, my tomato soup. I love this, but you have to do it. You either have to put in citric acid or bottled lemon juice, because tomatoes can, unless you test the acidity of your tomatoes. So if you grow tomatoes, I think it's they're like a 4.6 on the acidic scale, the pH scale. And so your tomatoes, unless you test them, you don't know how much acid they actually have. And so if they're low acid, then you should pressure can them. That's makes it safe. But also putting the lemon juice in or citric acid raises the pH and makes it safer for home canning. So sometimes I put citric acid. Now I'm putting lemon juice. However, unfortunately, it does change the taste of the soup. So now I'm using 1-inch headspace on this because I'm pressure canning. It gets really hot. The fluid absorbs more than in a water bath canner. This gets much hotter than a water bath canner. So you need to leave 1 inch of headspace. Then you wipe this off. But I have tried citric acid. It also has sort of a sour flavor. Today I'm just going to use the lemon juice, but I have gone back and forth between the citric acid and the lemon juice. And you can't use fresh squeezed lemon juice because the same reason, you don't know how much acid is in that tomato juice. But when they can tomato lemon juices, I think they have to it has to be a certain acidity. So that's why it's safe to use the canned lemon juice. Okay, so now I'm going to put make sure that there's no bubbles in here. Usually I find that with soups that there's not really a problem. If it's a soup like this, there's not usually a lot of air trapped in there, but I've got my lid and my ring. The jar is super hot, so do use your tools. And just hand tighten. And that's it. I'm going to put it back into the canner, and I'm going to finish up with another couple jars, and then I'll show you how I start the machine again. Okay, now this goes right into your canner, into the Presto electric canner. Now I take my next jar and I go back and I empty this out and fill it again. So I'm going to continue this with all these jars, and I'll come back in a minute. All 5 jars are filled up with the soup, and now I'm ready to process and can these. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lid back on. And put it in here and lock it. And again, the regulator still does not go on. You keep it off for now. Lock this, close it, lock it. Now down here, you just go ahead. We finished filling the jar, so we press this. And now it's going to heat up. It's going to heat up, and it's going to go through the process of venting. So it'll start venting, and steam and things will be released from the vent on the top. And when it's up to the correct pressure, this is going to beep again. It's going to tell me to put the regulator on. And then I will use one of my hot gloves, and I will pop the regulator back on. So I'll come back in 10 minutes when we're ready to do that. You can see the machine is now venting, and this will probably go on for about 10 minutes, and then it'll signal for me to put the regulator on, and it'll start going into the canning cycle. So the light came on to show me that it is in the 10-minute venting cycle now,
And as this counts down, once the 10 minutes is done, then it will tell me to put the regulator on and it'll move on to the next phase. So the 10 minutes is up, and now see how it says put regulator on? So now I take the regulator here, and the only thing is it's hot, so you have to be careful. So I'm going to use my, I have a hot mitt, but the hot mitt is a little bit tricky to use. It's a little hard, but I'm going to try to do it with this. So I'm going to stick this on here. You got to kind of push it on. And once you can get it on, there we go. On the top, you're going to see that there is some words. It says vent, and then it says can. So you definitely want that pointing to can. And then you go ahead and you press the next button, showing that you did it. Okay, I'm going to be pressure canning the tomato soup for 20 minutes. So now it shows 20. And now the countdown starts for the pressure canning phase. So we'll come back in 20 minutes. The canner is now canning, and it's going to be pressure canning for 20 minutes. And I just wanted to show you that this is called the vent pressure lock. Yes, it's called the air vent cover lock. So finally, when this is really under pressure and really starting, this will pop up, and that locks the lid into place. And it finally just popped up. So it basically takes the whole venting process, what goes on for about 10 minutes. This eventually pops up and signals it's really time to start canning. The pressure is set, and now the canner is actually counting down the 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, basically, my job is done. In 20 minutes, the processing time expires and the canner will beep about 4 times. The cool light shows up, and the cooling takes about 1.5 hours. And after that, it will count down again from 10 minutes down to 0. And when it beeps, you can actually, as long as that little vent lock is gone back down, you can open the lid and remove your jars. So that's it.
Now the cool cycle is on, and the soup will just sit in there and cool off. It'll take about 1.5 hours, and it'll count down. The timer will count down from 10 to 0. Then it will beep, and it's time to take the jars out.